My best friend was grieving, and me, being young and inexperienced, had no idea how to help her. We spent hours and hours over the next few days cooped up in her room. She didn't want to go out, but she didn't want to be alone either. Luckily, my parents were supportive and understanding, and pretty much let me come and go as I pleased during that time. Sometimes Lisa would be angry, cursing the asshole who decided to mock her family's grief by playing games with her brother's body. Other times she would feel guilty, asking again and again why she hadn't jumped into the water when Mark had fallen in, why she had let him take the solo canoe, or why she had suggested going to Anders Mill in the first place. She would sob without speaking for what felt like hours. Her own parents, too wrapped up in their own grief, left me to take care of her. I was clueless. The worst times, however, were when she would get paranoid. She would rant that there was some kind of conspiracy or cover-up, and everything that happened from the deer to the canoes getting hit and tipped, to the body in the yard and the man on the shore, hell, even the drought itself was somehow connected. I had no idea what to tell her. She was right on some parts. Our canoes were really attacked and something really did pull Mark under. But the way she ranted and raved about an unseen man controlling the weather made me terrified for her mental health. To my relief, she had at least never claimed to actually see the man standing on the shore again. One day, about 4 days after Mark's body was found and after another sleepless night watching old TV shows, Lisa's parents finally made an appearance. When she came into Lisa's room, Lisa's mother seemed a little dazed and zombie-like herself. "Oh, Amy, I didn't know you were here." "Hi, Miss Moretti," I said. "I've been here for a few days." "That's nice, dear," she said vaguely. I privately wondered if she was on some kind of medication that made her seem so dreamy. "Lisa, we have to go to the church. Father Luke wants to talk with the whole family before tomorrow." Lisa, who had barely left the room to go to the bathroom, looked like she might resist. "What's tomorrow?" she asked. "It's Mark. It's the wake." Lisa didn't comment. She went to her dresser and grabbed a few clothes and her hairbrush and left for the bathroom. Miss Moretti turned to me and said, "Lisa will call you later, I expect," then left herself. Unsure of what to do, I waited to see if Lisa would come back to the room, but I heard her leave the bathroom and go directly down the hall to her family. I left through the casement window, as usual. Seeing the Moretti's car pull out of the driveway, I felt at a loss. I decided to call Nate. I wanted to talk about everything that happened and share my concerns about Lisa with someone who would understand. While I liked Carlos, he was more of Mark's friend than mine, and kind of a goofball. Nate answered on the first ring. "Amy, I'm glad you called." "Why, has something happened?" I asked apprehensively. "Not really," Nate replied. "I'm just kind of going crazy here running over what happened in my head, and I don't know who I can talk to about it." We agreed to meet at my house. My parents weren't home, and we went straight to my room on the second floor. "I know there was something out there that night," Nate began. "Something killed those deer, and something was hitting our boats, that's for sure." "Lisa would agree with you. She's sure it's all connected. To be honest, she's starting to scare me how she talks about it." "And what do you think?" Nate asked. "I don't know what to think," I replied honestly. "I mean, I guess animals could have killed the deer, and it could have been underwater rocks or branches that we just hit with the canoes," I finished weakly. Nate did not look impressed. "You were there. You saw how Mark's canoe shot up into the air. Something hit it from underneath with a lot of force." "I know," I replied. "I just can't believe it, because what could do a thing like that? And Lisa swears she saw a man standing on the lake shore that night Mark's body was put there. But I looked and never saw anything." "It's hard," Nate said, "because some of the things we know we saw, and that's crazy enough, but then there are other things that are in my mind that seem so far-fetched that I don't know what to think." "Like what?" I asked. "Like the bigger deer." Nate hesitated. "Don't think I'm crazy when I say this, okay? I know how it sounds." I waited. "I remember how it looked when we found it that morning. I'm almost positive that it had drowned. It didn't have any marks on it, and just from looking at it, that's just how it seemed. But how could it have drowned? The deer were on the other side of the campsite from the lake. If it drowned, someone would have to carry it right past us to place it where we found it, but we never heard anything." I was quiet for a long moment. I was sure Nate was right. I had been thinking the same thing ever since I saw Mark's drowned body, that he looked just like the deer. We sat in silence some more. Nate looked over the things on my desk idly from where he was sitting. "Is this the mirror you found?" he asked, picking it up and looking at the back of the handle. "Yeah, I guess I forgot I had it." Nate turned it over and looked in the glass. He suddenly shouted and dropped the mirror as if it had burned him. "What?" I yelled, jumping up from the bed. I thought I saw someone," he said, looking around the room behind him. "I thought I saw a man standing behind me." I picked up the mirror from the ground and looked in it. I didn't see anything strange. "Maybe it was the light," I suggested. Nate looked unconvinced. "Listen, I know it all sounds crazy, and I know Lisa ranting about it probably makes you even more hesitant, but you know that there's more to this than what the police have said," Nate said with renewed vigor. "There is something weird about Anders Mill, and whatever it is got our friend killed. If Lisa is right, then something followed us all the way back and is now messing with her family. I think we owe it to Mark and to the Morettis to try and figure this out, if we can." "Figure out what?" I asked. "Figure out who or what killed those deer, or if some kind of animal lives in that lake that can flip canoes, or if some creep is trying to torment the Morettis? How could we do any of that? Because I will tell you one thing, I am never going to that village or that part of the lake. Frankly, I doubt I will ever go out on the water again." "No," said Nate. "No, I definitely don't think we should go back to Anders Mill, but there are other ways of finding out what kinds of stories have been told about the place, and if any of them are true." "Like what?" I asked. "My grandmother was actually born in Anders Mill before it was flooded," Nate explained. "She and my great-aunt both lived there when they were little kids, and they kept in touch with a lot of the displaced families after the flood. I was thinking we could go visit them and ask if they might have any ideas." I was somewhat skeptical, but since I didn't have any better ideas, I soon found myself riding in Nate's car to the only old folks' home in our little town. The interior of the home looked like it had not been redecorated since the early 1980s. Busy pink floral wallpaper dominated the room, as well as a heavy mauve curtain over every window. The furniture was more commercial than homey, with all of the seats being covered in a seafoam green vinyl material. Nate introduced me to his nonna, Sophia, a heavy-set woman who must have been in her mid to late 80s, and his Zia, Maria, who was even older and as frail as a baby bird. The first thing that I noticed about Maria was that she was missing her right hand, just below the elbow. I wondered if it was the result of diabetes, or if it was an old injury. I tried not to stare. Nate exchanged the typical pleasantries and made small talk with his relatives for what felt like an agonizingly long time, before he finally got to the point. "Nonna, Zia, something sad happened to me and my friends the other day," Nate began. "Oh no, baby doll," Sophia replied with genuine concern. "What sad thing could happen to someone so young?" "Well, it's our friend, Nonna. He died." Both Maria and Sophia made sympathetic noises. "In fact, he drowned," Nate finished. At this, both women reacted with noticeable stiffening. Maria seemed to be looking at Sophia out of the corner of her eye, as if she wanted to see what the other woman would do. "We were canoeing on Lake Run," Nate pressed on, "when our friend's canoe tipped and he drowned. Some other strange things happened while we were on the lake too. We wanted to ask you if you had ever heard of strange things in the water there or dangerous things in the woods." All traces of sweetness and sympathy seemed to be gone from Nonna Sophia's face now. The change in her voice was dramatic. She now sounded stern and clipped. "I would have thought," she said, "that a boy as intelligent as you would know better than to go near that place. I know I remember telling you never to go there when you were a child, but now you come asking me if it's dangerous? You know the answer to that question. Now I won't discuss that place anymore." Sophia turned her head away, glaring and looking livid. Nate seemed a little at a loss. Clearly he had not expected this. "I'm sorry, Nonna. I didn't mean to upset you." He looked hesitantly at his great-aunt. "It's okay," Maria said gently. "You're just upset about your friend. But you must know that this is a bad place you went to." Sophia huffed but did not speak. Maria continued, "There have been many bad things that have happened at that lake, and before, when there was no lake." Maria gave another furtive glance at her sister. "Why, when we were children, our little brother and I—" "Maria!" Sophia interjected. "You're not allowed." "Oh, phoo," Maria explained with surprising energy. "Who's going to tell me I'm not allowed, huh? You, father? He's been dead for 60 years. She was now waving her amputated arm around for emphasis. "I'm the one who was there, wasn't I? I'm the one who saw it. Who are you to tell me I'm not allowed?" Sophia seemed taken aback. Frankly, Nate and I were as well. None of us seemed to expect this much of excitement out of the elderly Zia Maria. Sophia sputtered a bit about Nate being her grandson, but it was clear that Maria would not be swayed. Sophia spat, "Well, on your own heads be it," and stormed out of the room. Maria looked somewhat relieved for her to be gone. She turned back to Nate and I. "Well, clearly there's some folks who wouldn't like for me to be telling you this, but I'm an old lady now and I'll do as I please." Back when I was a girl, back before it was a lake and it was just the village of Anders Mill, there were things that happened there that no one ever talked about. There was no real police in the town, just the company of coppers who worked for the Andersons, and so when bad things happened, even if it didn't concern the Andersons, it never got investigated. And it was a lot of bad things that happened. Sometimes it would be little things, like an animal goes missing and turns up killed and no one knows who done it. Our neighbors had a dog they lost like that. Other times it was big things, like folks going missing, and no one ever sees them again. "And no one ever investigated why people were going missing?" Nate interrupted. "No, but that's not the worst of it. Sometimes people went missing, but they were found, and then the families almost wished they hadn't been, because when they were found, it wasn't right. Sometimes the bodies would be all torn up, like animals got at them, but they were in the middle of the street where the whole town could see. Other times the folks turned up drowned, but always far away from the creek that ran past the mill, which was the only water in town. You tell me how a body's going to turn up drowned on the steps of the church 10 blocks from the creek or drowned, but on the roof of his own house? It wasn't right. But the worst part was, we all knew it wasn't right, but we were too scared to do nothing about it, and what could we do anyway? So we locked our doors at night and prayed it was somebody else's kid that got taken that night and not ours. And that was the way life was for a long time. For a while we just lived side by side with death and pretended not to notice. They came and told us that they were going to change all the land and make a big lake, and all kinds of rich people would come and bathe and sail and all kinds of things. Well, we were all thrilled, because we thought that nobody who knew the place would want to live in Anders Mill, but maybe these rich people would. Maybe they would buy our houses and tear them down to build their little cabins or whatnot, and we could take the money and leave. We could all go somewhere where people don't turn up drowned or on dry ground, or where you don't find a severed foot on your stoop with your morning milk. But it didn't work out like the men from the state said. Instead, the water came up higher and higher, and all of a sudden they were saying that we would have to leave, that the whole town was going to flood. Well, our papa didn't believe them at first. He said it was a trick to get our house. He wasn't the only one. Lots of folks stayed as long as they could. One day, after the water started rising, I was outside with Anthony. That was Sophia and I's little brother. He was only about 4, and he was just wandering around splashing in the water at the foot of the hill on our street and laughing that the water was so high, because he didn't understand, you see, when something got him. Maria paused here and seemed to collect herself for what she was about to say next. Well, your grandmother is right that there are some things a person's not supposed to talk about, and what I saw that day is something I will take to my grave. But what I will say is that Anthony died, and we never got him back, and I lost my hand, and I never got that back neither. She waved her stump for emphasis. And what it is that lives in the water there, it's from the devil. I've never in my life known evil like that, and I hope I never do again. So that's all I have to say about my village. I'm sorry about your friend, but if you want my advice, you'd best just forget about it and stay away from that place. The devil is in that place. Hey guys, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. So guys, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I have to ask you guys a question. Have you guys seen the new Netflix TV series, Stranger Things? If you haven't, please do. That show is freaking awesome. Really good Netflix TV series show. And quite honestly, Netflix, man, I mean, Daredevil Season 1 and 2, they're just amazing. I mean, they've been pumping out all these shows that are just awesome. But the reason why I'm bringing up Stranger Things is because there are certain aspects of this series that I'm narrating that almost feel like that they're taken from Stranger Things a little bit. It has that same little cool mystery vibe to it, that little mysterious scariness to it, that paranormal to it. But anyways, I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. So go check out the show. Trust me, it's awesome. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.